Advanced warning at the very start of this video. This episode contains spoilers from this year's Non-League to Legend. If you're not completely up to date with Non-League to Legend this year, I suggest going and watching through that playlist, getting fully up to date, then coming back to this video, because although it's not about that save per se, I'm using an up-to-date version of that save file to make the video. So, final clarification before I hit you with the spoiler: this contains spoilers. Loads of them. Hello and welcome to another Non-League to Legend Extra. I'm Kev, and today we're going to be doing something that both is timely for me and is also the most requested topic off the back of the last Non-League to Legend Extra video. And we're going to be looking at how I put together a tactic when I first arrive at a new club. Now, hands up in the air, full disclosure time initially. You know, and I know, I'm rubbish at tactics, but I do manage to arrange 11 players onto a pitch and eventually stumble across something that usually might lead us to some kind of success. Not necessarily in Non-League to Legend this year, as shown by the fact that we're going to be doing this with my new Bath City side rather than Alfreton where we started out, because we were about to get sacked there. So we've moved clubs, which that was the spoiler I was talking about. So this is slightly behind where Non-League to Legend actually is, because I'm recording this video straight after the video where we got the job. So I've done nothing at Bath City so far. It's the 5th of June. We've just arrived. We've not signed any players. We've not decided who we're keeping. We've not assessed the squad in any way. And we don't know what kind of tactic we're going to be using. And that is, I mean, it's the perfect opportunity to have a look to see what the process is that I go through when I first arrive at a club, to get a rough idea for what sort of tactic we're going to be using, how I want us to be able to play, how our players fit into that. And the first screen that I start on is the team report. And you saw a little bit of this in the main video, where I had a little bit of a look through, identified who our better players were, where our strengths were, and what kind of football we might want to play. And interestingly, for a National League South side, so not a particularly good team, but it is interesting to see for at our level, we are a good passing side. It says it in here somewhere. I know it says it somewhere. Passing, there you go. It's right there at the top. So this is a big, fat, green strength. So it's not one of our, it's sort of a strength, orange strengths. So these are our main strengths. And our main strength is that there's an impressive standard of passing quality amongst this group of players. So I know straight away that whatever we come up with, we're going to be doing some kind of passing system. There's going to be no more of this hoofing the ball forward that we've been doing with our non-league teams so far this year. We're going to be playing passing football. And we can also get an idea for who our better players are, and also the fact that we're a good tackling side. So we can pass well, we can tackle well. These are good starting points for a squad. We know that we've got a good right back and a good left back and another good right back. So that gives me an idea that actually we've been using a 3-5-2 with some of our other teams, but we've got some of our really very best players are proper fullbacks rather than wing backs. So he's a right back. There was a left back in there somewhere as well. Anthony Straker is a good left back. So we're probably going to be looking to play a flat back 4, although both those contracts are up in a month's time. So we need to make some decisions quickly if we're going to stick to a flat back 4. And if not, let them leave and bring in some replacements. But on the face of it, we're probably going to use a flat back 4 with a good passing system. We've got one decent centre back in the shape of Lionel Stone. So we were starting to identify where we might need to bring in another player, which will be another centre back to play alongside him. And then we'll move down into our orangey strengths, which help us start to put together some of the rest of the team and tactic. So looking a bit further down, we've now found as well that Matt Carter is a good player for us in central midfield. We want to be playing our better players in their preferred position, and his preferred position is a central midfielder on defend. So we're probably going to be using a central midfielder on defend in the shape of Matt Carter. So again, the team's starting to take shape a little bit. I'm a little bit worried that we've not yet seen any decent forwards. So that's, as well as starting to shape how the tactic might work, starting to put some ideas in my head about what kind of players we might need to bring in. Hint, we need to bring in some strikers. We've only got 3 at the club. But working down through the rest of this screen, we're physically strong, which, I mean, I imagine that does Why has my camera gone to a funny angle? I imagine that does affect things somewhere along the line, but I'm not going to worry too much about our physical strength. But we are a hard-working squad with plenty of players willing to put in the required effort. So I'm thinking maybe we could do some pressing. Maybe we could play at a higher tempo. We're a physically strong squad, so if we're pressing with a high tempo, good passing team, I'm already thinking, right, short passing, move the ball around quickly with a high tempo, press the opposition to win the ball back. We've got a squad that looks like it's capable of doing that. We've got good first touch. So again, that feeds into a high tempo, short passing style of play. And that's about it. So they're all our positives. So then on the flip side of that, and we're looking tactically really at the moment. So we're not necessarily worrying about gaps that we need to strengthen with more players, but we can see straight away we can't cross for toffee, so we're not going to be focusing our play down the flanks. We're going to be taking the play through the middle. I mean, it's already turning into a classic Kev 4-3-1-2 or a classic Kev diamond, and I'm not even doing it deliberately, but if we can't cross but we can pass, then we're going to work the ball into the box. We're going to come up through the middle of the team. Decision making is a little bit iffy, so we perhaps want to have minimal players on automatic instructions. We don't want to have them roaming from positions, expressing themselves. We want to, although we want them to be passing around, we want them to be kind of sticking to the team instructions so they don't have to think too much for themselves. Leadership might be an issue. Aggression. So the fact, I mean, this one, I think, is this a new one on the team report this year? I've seen it at every club I've been at. Might be worth paying attention to the low levels of aggression and commitment in the squad. Yet we have got a good work rate. Work rate is good. So I don't know. Does this mean we can get stuck in and not worry about getting sent off? I'm thinking that's probably what it means. So if we are, it's not something I'll necessarily put on straight away, but if I find we're missing out in the tackle a lot, then we'll turn get stuck in on, and hopefully combining that with a low aggression means that we should be all right. Maybe. We're not very good in the air, which again feeds into that whole we're not very good at crossing thing. So we're not going to play any kind of aerial football. We're not going to be crossing in. We're going to be working the ball up with short passing through the middle of the pitch and trying to keep the ball on the ground as much as possible. So let's take that over onto the tactics screen. What do you know? The club have already got what I'm thinking available here. So put a pin in that for a second. Let's look at the squad and find out who our better players are. So now we know the kind of football we want to play, we need to be starting to think in terms of who we're going to put into what roles and trying to get our best players into their best role. And wouldn't you believe it, our best player is a winger. Jack Compton is a winger, but doesn't fit in at all into that style of play that we're going to be using. Now, his contract is up at the end of the season, which is a month's time. So I'm thinking we might actually let him leave, because if we look back through the rest of the team, everyone else looks like they're going to fit into a diamond. So we've got a guy there who can play up front or in attacking midfield, so he can be the point of our diamond. We've got another guy there, although he's only on loan. We could potentially extend that loan, who can play as a defensive midfielder. We've got a really, really small squad, actually. We're going to need to bring in a significant chunk of players, because once these loans go back and these contracts disappear, we're kind of building from scratch here. But I'm thinking that's a good shape for us to use. We're probably going to want to exploit the middle, because we don't want the ball going down the flanks at all. What else did we say we wanted to do? We want to do some short passing. We're going to do a bit of high tempo, some closing down. We could put on these things. I'm inclined to leave that off initially until it starts to become a problem, because we don't want to absolutely overload them with instructions. We already identified they're not the sharpest tools in the box for their decision making. So I'm looking for no more than maybe 4 or 5 instructions. How many have we got at the moment? 4. So short passing, exploit the middle, close down more, high tempo. I think that's probably enough for us to be getting on with in brackets get stuck in if we decide we might need it. In fact, I might make us a little bit narrower. If we're going to be playing a 4-3-1-2 and we're going down the middle, let's go narrow. That can be our 5. And then if we decide we need a little bit more, we can tell people to stick to their positions. We can tell them to stop expressing themselves. We can add on get stuck in. And we're going to sort of mess around with this over the summer. This isn't ever going to be an absolutely set in stone system. If we do a little quick pick now to see what players we can fit into that, is it going to pick anybody? No? Is that because I don't have an assistant manager, or because there's just nobody available? We're going to have to put our players in manually like a caveman. Oh, it's because they're all on holiday. So let's just pick the best player for each position and start. Again, this is the process that I would go through to start picking my first team. Once we've got everybody in their preferred position, at that point, we'll start changing the individual player roles. So get him in there, and this is going to be a very, very fluid thing at the moment while we decide who's going to be doing what. We're struggling quite a lot for a striker. So we're now looking to make sure everyone's in their position they're most comfortable with. So that guy already there. Excellent. Centre-backs, right. They want to be defensive centre-backs on defend. So let's make them defensive centre-backs on defend. If that's what they're best at doing, let's get them doing it. Our full-backs, my instinct is always to go for wing-backs, but I don't know that we've got people capable of doing it. So I think initially we'll probably just try and defend solidly. We have a completely defensive back four, and it does mean we miss out a little bit in these wider areas here, but we're trying to come down the front of the pitch anyway. If we're never getting the ball there, that's fine, because all we're going to do with the ball just there is cross it. And we already know we can cross all day long, and no one's getting on the end of them. 14% connecting with crosses or something was the stat, wasn't it? So he wants to be a playmaker. What do you want to be? You want to be a central midfielder on defend as well. Well, you can't both be. So which one of you is going to be better at doing support? You. So we'll perhaps do that. You can be a playmaker on attack. You can be... so you want to be a poacher. Okay, you can be a poacher. I can live with that. You also want to be a poacher. We're not going to do two poachers, but we can perhaps do a poacher and a target man. And because we've decided we're going to have... 4 attacking instructions. I think we probably need to be on a control mentality to do that as well. Because if we go on standard with 4 attacking instructions, in my experience, it's a recipe for disaster, or at least my assistant manager doesn't care for it. So I think that would be, without obviously doing any summer transfers, any fiddling around with it at all, that's the basis of the tactic that we'd use for the first game of the season, and then we'll just fiddle with it from there. We'll take our assistant manager's advice on board. If he really doesn't like some of this stuff, we'll take it off. If he's suggesting other stuff to put on, we'll put it on, monitor the difference it makes and adjust accordingly. If we've got players who really aren't performing in these positions, we'll swap them out. If we're getting destroyed because we're attacking too much, we'll drop back a little bit. But this is where we'll start with, and then over the course of a number of games, we'll tweak it and tweak it and tweak it until we find something that works. And if it's a club we're going to have a good start at, then it'll only take us half a dozen games to tweak it into something that allows us to start winning games. It might be that more along the lines of Alfreton, we're still tweaking at the end of the season and still not quite getting it right. And sometimes that's the way it works. But now we've done that, I can then start identifying the sort of players we need to bring in, and that ties into the last non-league to legend extra then, because now I'm going to go and try and buy some players. And straight away I'm thinking I've got 2 very attacking forwards and not much in terms of strength and depth behind them at all. I've got all 3 of my strikers on the pitch at the same time. So we want to bring in a couple of strikers, but the strikers we want to bring in are going to be deeper strikers, because we've got an advanced forward and a poacher. Well, let's bring in a couple of deep lying forwards so we can do some combinations. We need a backup for this guy. We need someone who can do something a little bit different in midfield. It would be nice to have a box-to-box midfielder or a ball-winning midfielder in there, rather than just guys who... We don't really want 2 playmakers. I don't really like having 2 central midfielders, or they're on different instruction. And it would be nice to get a full-back on one side who could maybe be a wing-back on support, perhaps on this side if we're putting a defensive midfielder there. It'd be nice to have a guy who can do that and just get a little bit further forward and maybe give us just a little bit of width. You can see how the colour changes that little bit further forward just from making that change all the way back there. But it is very much a throw some ideas together based on that initial meeting and tweak it from there. I'm not going to take you through all the processes of tweaking. If that's something you'd like to see on a future video, let me know down in the comments. But to be honest, you'll see that as the season goes on. It'll often look like I'm just randomly making changes, but that's because sometimes you're only seeing every 5 or 6 games, and there usually is a thought process behind it. It's not always that entertaining to show you the thought process. That's what these extras are for. This is where Kev talks to you like a grown-up. When I'm doing the main series, that's when I have to act the fool, because that's okay. Because I am an idiot, but it's fun. But hopefully that's been something you've enjoyed. Hopefully it's something that's helped some of you out. If you're new to the game, certainly you could do a lot worse than going through that kind of process to put an initial tactic together. So let me know down in the comments how your process differs from mine. If you go through a completely different process, let me know. Do you go into a club already with an idea of how you want to play and force the players into it, or sign players accordingly? Or do you do something completely different that I perhaps haven't thought of? It's been 20 plus years of playing Football Manager games that has led me to doing it this way. But as you can see from that combination of players and from what the early results in the season are likely to be, it's by no means perfect. I don't understand or care to understand the intricacies of, oh no, we've got an advanced playmaker there, he doesn't really combine well with no, I don't know any of that. I just know they look like they're roughly the right players in roughly the right shape, doing roughly the right thing, and we'll do trial and error to move on from there. But I'm very keen to hear how you guys do it and what success you've had. And also, with this bunch of players that we've just seen in quite a lot of depth, what would you do differently? Would you have come to the same conclusions of me with the information you've been given? Would you go 4-3-1-2? Would you do something different? Would you change some of these team instructions? I'm all ears. That's what the comments are for. If you've enjoyed this video and you're enjoying the Non-League to Legend extra series, then please make sure you give it a nice big thumbs up. The more you show me that you're enjoying these extra bonus episodes, the more likely I am to keep doing them. They're not necessarily going to be a regular weekly thing, but I think when there's a topic that deserves looking at in a little bit more depth, I'll certainly look to do it with one of these. And it worked out nicely this week that we've just hit a new club and it made sense to look at how we set up tactics. So if you have enjoyed it, give it a nice big thumbs up for me. Subscribe to the channel for brand new Football Manager content at 4 PM and 9 PM every single day. And thank you very much for watching.